Here now is CJ on the record, but voice altered electronically to protect his identity and his Army career.
It was a clear evening. We could see the sky, we could see clouds. It was peaceful, and we started running into strange fog. And my wife mentioned, that's some creepy fog, because it was pretty dense in some spots, and in other spots it wasn't. And having to turn the windshield wipers on because it was moistening the windows. The fog started to clear up, and we were still traveling down Highway 1. We noticed that the radio station that we were listening to started getting staticky. And I put it on Sirius XM, satellite radio, because I thought, no signal. And we were driving a little bit further up the road, and then it started getting really staticky. And then the lights on the inside of my truck, the dash lights, they got bright all of a sudden, and then started to dim down a bit. I noticed it, but there's no dash lights in front of my wife, so now I just mentioned dash lights just got real bright all of a sudden, and they dimmed down. And then she looked over, and they weren't doing it anymore. And as she was looking forward, she said, "Are you turning your headlights off?" I was like, "No, I'm not touching the headlights," because the headlights were starting to do the same thing, dimming. So they ended up going back normal brightness, and I'm just kind of looking around to see if the power meter on the dashboard is showing that I've got power, or my battery's doing what it's supposed to do, or my alternator. And my wife noticed something in the sky, like bright light. It was a white light. She said, "What the heck is that?" And I look over and I said, "That's probably an airplane or something." As it was coming down toward the road in front of us, I slowed down. I took my foot off the gas and took it off the cruise control and applied the brake, because to me it was kind of looking like some airplane landing lights. However, it was just one light. Its trajectory was coming down toward the interstate that we were on. So I applied the brakes because I didn't know what the heck's going on. And as it's getting closer, we're seeing some sparks toward the rear of it. They weren't shooting out consistently. They were spurting. It would die down to just a couple little spark things, and then it would jet out a little bit. It would die down again. And so I applied the brakes more and started to pull off to the road, because whatever it was looked like it was going to slam right into the highway in front of us. So we slowed down, and I ended up pulling the truck to the side of the road and stopping. And as this thing got closer and closer, we realized its size was enormous. As this thing came overhead, it had slowed down dramatically. Its trajectory was no longer in direct contact with the highway in front of us. It pulled up and was literally at its lowest point, probably about 200 feet off the ground. It was very large. This thing was circular. When it was coming over our head, it was coming over our head very slow. The light that it was projecting out in front of it was not attached to it. It is though the light source was off of the object, not connected to the object. It was created by some sort of static field around it, or plasma field that had multiple colors. It had some sort of field around it that looked like an oil slick on water. Very dim, but it lit the surface of the object. It was some sort of metallic. I did not see any rivets. I didn't see any creases. I didn't see any distinct lines that would piece this thing together. It just had these emblems that were in the bottom of it. It looked like it just was part of the craft itself. It was just a darker color of the metallic. Like if I run my fingers across it, it would be smooth. When it was directly overhead, just slightly in front of us, the lights dimmed down to nothing. The dashboard lights dimmed down to nothing. And the radio was nothing but static. The hair on my arms was standing up as staticky. We were watching it for, I don't know, the whole thing lasted no more than 5 minutes, under 5 minutes perhaps. When it was time for this thing to go, or when it was leaving, it increased in altitude, angled itself up into the northeast. It left its level state and began going up into the northeast quickly, disappearing quickly. It made a slight turn more directly east, went into some clouds, and we saw some sparks jet out the back. And it zipped off into the clouds, out of sight, very quickly. It began sparking at the back, as if the field that was around it had increased or changed or was altered in some way. The light that was not attached to it, but out in front of it, it also moved in the direction that it was going to go. Like it changed. It moved from being straight in front of it to slightly in the direction that it was going to go. And then the sparks started jetting out the back as it was increasing in speed. When we got back on the road, I said to her, I feel like I'm full of static right now. She said that she felt it on her hands. What was it that we just saw? When we stopped at that gas station and we got out, I clearly remember my legs feeling like noodles. And I had plenty of leg room in that truck for me to stretch my legs out. And I've been on very long trips before, but this was the beginning of our trip and should have only just taken a couple of hours. I would not feel like I felt like I was very heavy. They felt weaker, as if they weren't quite ready to support my own weight. From Richmond Hill, Georgia, it takes us literally 4.5 hours to get to Atlanta. However, somehow it took us 8 hours. When we reached Wadley, Georgia, it was about 1:28 when the incident occurred. It was an excessive amount of time for the distance that we traveled, so that's what kind of threw us off. Why did it take so incredibly long to get from there to there? Why did my GPS take me off route into Wadley, Georgia? And then why did my GPS tell me I was at my final destination not more than 45 minutes up the road? And it dead ended at a church right next to a graveyard. Why was that my final destination? And I checked it. I put in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I put city center. And when we started the trip on a brand new GPS unit that I just bought prior to the trip, why did it say Wadley, Georgia? We were at our final destination. There's a lot of things that threw us off quite a bit. When we first stopped just north of Atlanta, I didn't sleep hardly at all. I couldn't go to sleep. I felt like I was wired or unable to. My wife closed her eyes briefly, and she may have only slept about an hour. The kids passed out for a little bit, but they were up and playing games on their tablets and things. The night that I actually fell asleep, and that was the next hotel stop, and that first time that it happened was in that hotel. I do not remember getting out of bed and walking into the bathroom with a pen in my hotel sheet and doing that. I literally woke up standing there after I had finished. I keep hearing things that I can kind of make out as English, I guess, but it's not verbally spoken. It's just, I understand what it is. Something Council of 5, I believe. The feeling that I get is that whatever is happening or whatever has happened to us, that it's not a threat. It's more of a warning and preparation for something. That whatever's happening, it's more of like, it's that intent. It's more of an educational or an awareness or an alert, a warning of what may come or what could come or what is soon to come, or I don't know. It could be a massive earthquake. It could be a volcanic eruption. It could be anything. There are others that have that intent, and they're doing what they can to try to help us. They're almost to the point where they're outnumbered, and we're going to need to assist and get to where we need to be sooner in order to be able to stand a chance or maybe to assist a positive outcome. The skin, similar to ours, however, a lighter color. Not gray, but a grayish in color. Elongated heads, larger sockets for eyes, larger eyes. In the dream that I was seeing, there was one about where my feet would be, and I could see expressions on its face as a little bit of worry, but was trying to keep me calm. There was one off to my left, closest to me, that looked as though it was a little bit impatient and just all around didn't seem like it really wanted to be in the room at the time, or maybe it was aggravated with the way that I was behaving, had an expression of how I'd look at my kids if they're getting on my nerves kind of thing. There was another one down by my feet that seemed to be more involved in assisting the one that was trying to keep me calm or relaxed, but was a little bit more focused on its individual task. Seemed like every time that I would relax and calm down for a short period of time, and then I'd feel a lot of pain in my neck and my back. it was like, calm down, calm down, calm down. And then I would feel like sharp pains in my neck and my back. I don't know why. After the incident, I took pictures of some red dots that appeared on my skin around my body, primarily on my back and my neck. And I had neck pain for about 3 or 4 days, not necessarily in a pattern. They were just some random spots. I had one on my arm that stayed a little bit longer than the rest, but in my dream I was moving my arms more than anything. I had some photographs of the ones on my arms that I could. My wife visually saw the ones on my back. The fourth was kind of in the background behind the 2 that were down by my feet. And actually that was 6, because there was one on my left side near my shoulder and elbow, one on my right side near my shoulder and my elbow, 2 down by my feet. And a 5th was kind of moving around in the back. That one entered the room. It was kind of just noticing me there, and it reached up and pulled a black, almost like a contact out of his eye. And it had a regular eye, like a regular person's eye, and was pulling off the other contact as it was turning and walking off. I would say 1.5, maybe 2 times the size of an average human head. Bodies were a bit more frail, thin, and somehow I believe that's as a result of atmospheric conditions and gravity, perhaps from where they're from. Not much muscle is needed to move about, I guess. It was pale skin with a grayish tint to it. It was more of a blend between very light gray and white Caucasian skin. And the corners of the eye closest to the nose was very similar to ours. The eye duct on the outside, a little bit higher up. The part closest to the nose was quite normal, like human. The other corner of the eye was higher up than human, very large. Almond, like the tear duct, close to 3 times the size of a human eye, perhaps. They seemed to be a contact that we're able to remove. The ones that were closest to me had lenses in their eyes that's made them look black or dark. I mean, they clearly had pupils and irises, and they were behind a darker colored lens. I can clearly see from the one behind that took the lens out of his eye and was taking the other lens out. It was quite similar to our own, just some different variations of it. No, it could have been just a really dark brown, or it could have been a really dark blue. I mean, it could have been any color. What we're doing that's going to harm us, such as sending signals out into the void of space, is not a safe thing to do. That we have technology that we need to expand on, but it's being kept from everyone behind locked doors or closed doors, and only to certain individuals or something to that effect. That needs to be exposed, and all bright minds need to be involved in future advancement of what we have and what we need to increase our technical side, or we need to be able to improve at a faster rate. That it's necessary to expand and allow all minds to come together to get things done a little bit quicker. Whatever's going to happen might negatively affect us. I don't know what that might be, though. I know it's something that will affect us here on Earth. I know that at our current state and our current advancement in technology and how we're progressing is happening too slow. And the way to fix that is opening up and allowing everyone here who is kept in the dark or not being offered the information or not being told the information. One of the main things is that what needs to happen is we need to allow outside minds in order to solve the issues that we're having with what we have, to increase our advancement in technology and speed up our process for advancement. That's what's hard for me. It's like I haven't reached that point yet. Like I'm not ready to know that yet.